Make an announcement, they have to pull their mics close so they can hear. Can't hear.
All right, let's get started. Okay, this is the Municipal and County executive session today at March 1st, 2022. And would you please all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. As a note, we had some feedback that it was difficult for the audience to hear us yesterday. So I would ask you, when you're speaking, to make sure the mic is pointed right at your face and not pointing up to the sky. And turn your mics on and off as necessary.
That's the thinking people.
Okay, we have two folks who are joining us today as subs. We have Sue Newman and we have Wayne McDonald. So welcome to both of you. Okay, will you do a roll call, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, here.
Yes, on the Vice Chairman, the clerk is here. Representative Tripp,
I'm here too.
Representative Guthrie,
Here.
Representative LaSalle,
Here.
Representative McDonald. Here. Representative Melvin,
Here.
Representative Ayer. Here. Representative Power,
Here.
Representative Majori,
Here.
Representative Trelevin, Representative Gilman,
Here.
Representative Stavis. Here. Representative Newman,
Here.
Representative Van,
Here.
Representative Gallagher,
Here.
Representative Rung,
Here.
and Chairman Dolan.
Here.
Excuse me? Was I removed from the committee?
I'm sorry?
Was I removed? I didn't hear my name called.
Did you call?
Representative Klee.
Yes, I'm
My
here.
apologies.
Thank you.
So Joe, could I ask you to turn off your mic?
Yes.
So don't forget, please don't forget that after you engage with the committee, that you turn your mic off, because they're very sensitive and will pick up things that you don't really want them to pick up. Okay. We don't have a lot of bills today, but we have a few changes. So we're going to start off by reviewing Bill HB 1223. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Representative Sellis? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we reconsider House Bill 1223 so that we can reconsider that bill to have a different outcome.
Is there a second?
Second.
You got that? Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on that? Yes.
Could I request the motion maker to speak to their motion?
Well, the reconsider is kind of a self-explanatory motion. You want to know why he wants to
Yeah,
reconsider?
I would like to know why we are reconsidering.
Lascelles, I'll make that optional for you. You don't have to if you don't want to.
The reason that I feel we should reconsider this is to do more study on the bill. I don't think the bill is ready to be passed.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'd like to ask that what we're going to do at this point is, let's review the process. We're going to revote the ITL motion originally made. And then we'll look at further motions down the road if that passes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
don't we have to first vote on the motion to reconsider?
yes, we do. And then as we go through each one of these, I think there'll be about 2 or 3 votes on each motion that comes forward. So we have on the floor a motion to reconsider and a second. Mr. Clerk, would you take a roll?
Okay, Vice Chairman Piemonte,
Yes.
clerk votes yes. Representative Tripp,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie, Representative LaSalle,
Yes.
Representative McDonald,
Yes.
Representative Melvin,
Yes.
Representative Ayer,
Yes.
Representative Power,
Yes.
Representative Majori,
No.
Representative Gilman,
No.
Representative Davis,
No.
Representative Newman,
No.
Representative Van,
No.
Representative Klee,
No.
Representative Gallagher,
No.
Representative Rung,
No.
Chairman Dolan.
Yes.
Motion to reconsider passes 10 to 8.
Okay, Representative LaSalle, do you have a new motion to make?
Yes, Mr. Chair. My motion is to revote on the inexpedient to legislate.
Reconsider, is that what you're?
Yes.
Okay, so there is a motion to reconsider 1223. Is there a
Second.
second for that?
I second it.
No, we voted down the ITL. Oh, I'm sorry, we're now going to vote on the ITL.
Yes.
I'm sorry. So our first vote was to reconsider the bill. Now that it's been authorized to reconsider, we're going to look at the motions that were made around the original bill, and that bill had passed an ITL at that point. So now the motion, I'm sorry for that confusion, the motion is whether to maintain the ITL or to change the ITL. And Representative LaSalle, you have a motion?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
We have to vote on the ITL.
Yes, what is your vote? I'm sorry, we're going to go to the clerk to get a vote on the ITL.
Mr. Chair, can we discuss the motion on the floor, please?
Yes, you can.
Okay. May I speak?
Sure.
Thank you. Just as we voted on this the other day, I support the ITL. I don't think there's any hope for this bill, even if we go to interim study. The fact that it's removing someone from elected office just for 2 absences, regardless as if they're excused or not, I can look around this room and already count how many people would be removed from their office as state representative if the standard of this bill was applied to the House. I think it's an irresponsible bill. It's vague. It's contrary to what's already existing in law and in local ordinances. And it's a travesty if we can't just put this bill to a death. And just ask yourselves if you would be willing to leave your representation upon 2 excused absences, if you're ill, hospitalized, or whatever. I think if we can't live up to the standard of this bill, we shouldn't expect anybody else to. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Representative Gilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I'd like to remind members that when we heard the bill originally, we had 12 people signed up opposed to this legislation and only 5 in support. And the other thing I'd like to point out is we already have an RSA, a state law, for missing 4 meetings. So I'm not in favor of lowering it down to 2. I think that's impractical.
Thank you. Representative Klee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I remember correctly, based on my notes, there were a couple of issues that got brought up, and one was that it conflicted with RSA, and I've written this down. I have not double-checked it myself, so I apologize. RSA 32-15, Roman numeral 6, I believe is what I've written down, as well as there was a couple of comments that we needed to amend the 25% to 75%. Basically, we're saying if you've missed 25% of the meetings, you could be removed. That seems like a very low bar to remove someone from a meeting. So I am worried that we're going to pass this without having made these changes. And I think that was one of the reasons for the ITL, was that it just wasn't quite ready for, as too often said, ready for prime time. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Lascelles?
Yes, I think that the comments of my esteemed colleagues with respect to the problems with the bill kind of makes the argument for not to OTP it, but to study it more. Attendance at these meetings is very important, and people who, and the bill does make provisions for people who have an excused absence. So what I'm proposing is that we do an interim study on this bill, but we first have to vote down the ITL.
Thank you. Any further? Yes, Representative Ron?
I have a question for my friend from Litchfield. Where is excused absences allowed in this bill? I just see on line 7 and on line 16, it just says fails to attend 2 or more. It doesn't allow for any excused absences.
At the top of the bill, under the analysis, requires in-person attendance by an elected member, except under extenuating circumstances.
I believe that refers to remote participation. That unless there are extending circumstances, remote participation is not allowed.
I don't see any reference to remote participation. I don't know that.
It's in line 4 and 5. A meeting by electronic or other means of communication under RSA 91-A:2.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just think it needs more study to correct it, and that's the proposal I have.
Okay.
And I'd like to call a question.
Okay. Seeing no further comments, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll on whether or not to maintain the ITL on 1223.
Okay, Vice Chairman Piamonte,
No.
clerk votes no. Representative Tripp,
I vote no.
Representative Guthrie,
No.
Representative Lascelles,
No.
Representative McDonald,
No.
Representative Melvin,
No.
Representative Ayer,
No.
Representative Power,
No.
Representative Majori,
Yes.
Representative Gilman,
Yes.
Representative Davis,
Yes.
Representative Newman,
Yes.
Representative Van,
Yes.
Representative Klee,
Yes.
Representative Gallagher,
Yes.
Representative Rung,
Yes.
and Chairman Dolan.
No. Representative Tripp, can I ask you to turn off your mic?
The vote was 8 to 10. 8 to 10.
Hey, considering that, Representative LaSalle, you have an additional motion to make.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that on Bill 1223 for interim study.
Okay,
Second.
It's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion at this point on the bill? Representative Rung.
I really don't think interim study is going to fix this. I think it just needs to be redrafted. The prime sponsor didn't even speak to this. The person that spoke to it was someone who has a personal grudge against somebody on the Merrimack School District Budget Committee. I think this is just a political marching order vote. This is a bad bill. If we held ourselves to this, more than half of us in the House wouldn't even be holding our seats. So I'm disappointed in my colleagues for even bringing this bill up again, but I'm going to vote against the interim study.
Okay, any further discussion? Yes, Representative Majority.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I will add that I hope that whoever sits on the interim study will be considering the at least 1, 2, 3, 4 other statutes which will have to be amended in order to accomplish what this bill may try to accomplish. Tough haul, it seems to me. I wish them luck.
Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to take the roll. This is on interim study for House Bill 1223. Yes, you want to, yes is a, you do want to have an interim study. No is a you do not want to have interim study.
Vice Chairman Piemonte.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Tripp.
I vote yes.
Representative Guthrie.
Yes.
Representative LaSalle.
Yes.
Representative McDonald.
Yes.
Representative Melvin.
Yes.
Representative Ayer.
Yes.
Representative Power.
Yes.
Representative Majority.
No.
Representative Gilman.
No.
Representative Stavis.
No.
Representative Newman.
No.
Representative Van.
No.
Representative Klee.
No.
Representative Gallagher.
No.
Representative Rung.
No.
Chairman Dolan.
Yes.
Motion passes 10 to 8.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We're going to move on now on to House Bill 1272. And ask Representative LaSalle, do you have a motion you'd like to make?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we reconsider our OTP vote on House Bill 1272 so an amendment can be presented.
Is there a second to
Second.
that?
Second.
Representative Melvin seconds that motion. Is there any discussion on that motion to reconsider? Seeing none, oh, yes, Representative Gallagher.
Would this be the same amendment that we had a chance to adopt yesterday but chose not to? I remember yesterday you were asking if someone would like to introduce an amendment to it because one had been presented to us previously, but people chose not to. So I'm wondering if this is that same amendment.
It's possible. We will have to wait to see what the motion might be or might not be.
Okay.
Okay, seeing no further comment, Mr. Clerk, would you take a roll call on whether we should reconsider 1272? Sure, take your time.
Okay, the motion to reconsider 1272. Vice Chairman Piemonte.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Tripp.
Yes.
Representative Guthrie,
Yes.
Representative Lascelles,
Yes.
Representative McDonald,
Yes.
Representative Melvin, Representative Ayer,
Yes.
Representative Power,
Yes.
Representative Majori,
No.
Representative Gilman,
No.
Representative Davis,
No.
Representative Newman,
No.
Representative Van,
No.
Representative Klee,
No.
Representative Gallagher,
No.
Representative Rung.
Yes.
And,
Chairman Dolan.
yes.
Motion passes 11 to 7.
Okay, now we have before us whether or not, I'm sorry, we have before us that there may be an amendment that we want to put on the table, and so I'll ask Representative Lascelles, do you have an amendment?
Yes, I do. And the amendment that I have is 20220679H.
So we have a motion on the table for an amendment. We're going to take a vote on that amendment, and then we'll take another vote whether we want to OTP as amended. So that's what's coming. Yes, Representative Davis.
Question on the amendment?
I'm sorry?
Question on the amendment?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Should we second the amendment first?
Did we have a second on the
No,
amendment?
I'm
sorry,
seconding it.
Representative Davis, we're going to have to go through that. First. Who seconded it?
I am.
Representative Melvin, second. Now that the motion has been made and seconded, Representative Davis, the floor is yours.
My question has to do with how the author of the amendment feels that the amended version differs from the existing law. What is the substantive change being made here that justifies the change in this existing law?
There was a question. Do you want to take that question? You don't have to if you don't want to.
Did you see the portion of the amendment that was struck and then the other was put in? I didn't write that, so I don't have a comment on it.
So you're offering an amendment that you really don't know why we should support?
I just think the language is better.
Thank you.
Representative Majori?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to know from the author how striking such other regulations related to the public health, as in their judgment, the health and safety of the people require, is improved by unsanitary living conditions. Can the author of the amendment please explain that piece to me?
Again, it's your option to take the question or not. Since we don't have the author present.
Yeah,
on the committee,
in my opinion, the new language makes it more explicit.
Yes, Representative Davis?
In my opinion, it makes it very similar to existing law, which leads me back to my original question, is why bother?
Representative Power?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I remember correctly, the prime sponsor of this bill came to this committee with an amendment in hand. And as a result of the hearing and the feedback that the prime received, we have this amendment that's before us today. So based on my recollection, there was some concern with the phrase "be repugnant to the Constitution," and the prime was willing to remove that. Additionally, there was lines 11 through 13 in part, that was not supposed to be in there, and according to my notes, and OLS that was an oversight by OLS, so that's why that was removed. And then, again, lines 17 through 30 of the amendment that came to this committee during the hearing, the note was that that was taken directly from Vermont statute, and based on the feedback, the prime sponsor decided also to remove that in order to make the bill more clear. And finally, I would say that with regard to the questions, with regards to how is this amendment different than current statute, I would offer that it makes it more focused and more clear and less nebulous. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any further comments? Yes, Representative Brown.
Yeah, I support the amendment. I think the bill that we voted on yesterday was really flawed. It was, as I mentioned in my comments yesterday, the fact that the word repugnant is so subjective, it would be very difficult to give a specific example. Also, the 10 days, I felt was just, it was just a number pulled out of a hat, because there are some things that can affect a community that lasts a lot longer than 10 days. And I cited coliform, contamination of public water, and also cyanobacteria blooms. And but I do agree with Representative Davis's thing. I don't, even though I support the amendment, I don't really see how it differs much from the statute. I think nuisances, I mean, there are some examples given, but I think nuisance could apply to a lot of things that are already covered. You know, that I think the sponsor's trying to narrow down, but I still think having the word nuisance in makes this equivalent to the original bill, but I will support the amendment.
Thank you. Any other comments? Representative Majori? Oh. Okay, this is a little confusing, so I'm going to try to go slow to make sure everybody's following us, including me. We have in front of us House Bill 1272. We've taken a vote to reconsider it, and now at this point, it's clear that there is an amendment that needs to be offered. And once that's been offered, then we'll look what next step it is, depending on how the amendment is voted on. So we do have the amendment proposed and seconded by Representative Melvin. So I'll ask the clerk if you take a roll, please, on the amendment.
Okay, adopt amendment 2022-0679H. Vice Chairman Piemonte?
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Tripp?
I vote yes.
Representative Guthrie?
Yes.
Representative Lascelles?
Yes.
Representative McDonald?
Yes.
Representative Melvin?
Yes.
Representative Ayer?
Yes.
Representative Power?
Yes.
Representative Majori?
No.
Representative Gilman?
No.
Representative Davis?
No.
Representative Newman?
No.
Representative Van?
No.
Representative Klee?
No.
Representative Gallagher?
Yes.
Representative Rung?
Yes.
Chairman Dolan?
Yes.
Motion passes 12-6.
Okay, so we're still on House Bill 1272. We voted to reconsider it. We voted to add an amendment to it, and now we're going to see if there's another motion on the table now that the amendment's been added.
Yes, I move ought to pass as amended on House Bill 1272.
Is there discussion on on this before we move forward? Seeing none, I ask the clerk.
Second.
I'm sorry?
Second.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Representative Melvin. I'll ask the clerk now to take a roll on House Bill 1272 as amended. Yeah, we're in the voting mode, but I'll take your question. So OTPA. Yeah, he's gonna. John, put your microphone on before you start.
Okay, OTPA on House Bill 1272. Representative Piemonte.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Tripp.
I vote yes.
Representative Guthrie.
Yes.
Representative LaSalle.
Yes.
Representative McDonald.
Yes.
Representative Melvin.
Yes.
Representative Ayer.
Yes.
Representative Power.
Yes.
Representative Majori.
Yes.
Representative Tree 11. Okay. Okay. Representative Gilman.
Yes.
Representative Stavis.
Yes.
Representative Newman.
Yes.
Representative Van.
Yes.
Representative Klee.
Yes.
Representative Gallagher.
No.
Representative Rung.
Yes.
Chairman Dolan.
Yes, and may I say, congrats, that's not the right word. Thank you, Representative Trelevin, for stepping up and reminding us that you weren't here during the vote call and that you did the right thing.
Motion passes
17 to 1. Let me put that in consent. Without objection, I'll place that on the consent calendar. Seeing none, I'm going to move on, and believe me, we only have one more of these to do. House Bill 1268,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we reconsider House Bill 1268.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, this is a vote whether or not to reconsider or not. So I'll ask the clerk to call a roll on that. A vote yes would be to reconsider, a vote no would be not to reconsider.
Okay, motion to reconsider on HB 1268. Vice Chairman Piemonte.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Tripp.
I vote yes.
Representative Guthrie.
Yes.
Representative LaSalle.
Yes.
Representative McDonald.
Yes.
Representative Melvin.
Yes.
Representative Ayer.
Yes.
Representative Power.
Yes.
Representative Majori.
No.
Representative Tree 11.
No.
Representative Gilman.
No.
Representative Stavis.
No.
Representative Newman.
No.
Representative Van.
No.
Representative Klee.
No.
Representative Gallagher.
No.
Representative Rung.
Yes.
Chairman Dolan.
Yes.
Motion passes 11 to 8.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to ask if we have an amendment to, that's going to be proposed. Yes, Representative LaSalle.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer Amendment 0680H on House Bill 1268.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Representative Melvin. So we're at this point where we have voted to positively reconsider 1268, and now it's been motioned that we add an amendment in at this point. So we're going to take a vote on the amendment that's been proposed. Any discussion on the amendment before we move to a vote? Yes, Representative Majori.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm actually going to vote in favor of the amendment while I do not see how this makes any improvement to the bill whatsoever, because you're striking out well-being of the city and including enjoyment of property. Please explain those two definitions to me. I would ask for that, but I won't get it. So I will say that this does nothing to improve it. It keeps it benign, to say the least, and I will vote for it.
Okay, yes, Representative Davis.
I would second the comments of my colleague, Representative Majori, and I would also ask a question, and I know I'm not going to get an answer, is just what is repugnant to the Constitution? Can you provide me with a list of things that are repugnant to the Constitution?
Before you answer that, I think the research will show that that's current language in the RSA. Yes.
As a matter of, with respect to the definition of the word repugnant, I recall when there was a discussion in Congress of the subject of pornography. The esteemed senator suggested that he didn't have a definition of it, but he knew it when he saw it. How's that?
Any further discussion? Yes, Representative Klee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I have some concerns and worries that we're truly tying the hands of our municipalities. One of the questions that I asked when this originally came up was if we were to pass this and some type of emergency were to happen, that the municipality would need to be able to do that. We would have to get more or less permission from those that were currently in office, meaning the House and the Senate collectively. And I asked very specifically if something like this were to happen in November, when we're technically not in session, would we have to call them in order to be able to take care of this emergency, which is why the well-being of the city was put in. And I believe the author very specifically said to me, we would never call them in, which truly concerned me. Basically, we would be letting our municipalities kind of hang out to dry. And I just don't think it. And I think that the authors that originally put this RSA through specifically put that statement, which may seem for the well-being of the city, because they knew it would be impossible to think of every type of situation that could happen. And I'm concerned that by being as specific as we are, by basically saying only for the enjoyment of your property, we're not taking actually into the health of our citizens. And I think that this is just a bad precedent we're setting. I'm very concerned what we're doing to our cities. And for this reason, I will not be voting for this. I would ITL this bill.
Thank you. Representative Davis? Your mic on. Sorry, I was responding to that. Representative Gallagher?
Yeah, I want to echo Representative Klee's comments. I think the amendment makes the bill worse. I think enjoyment of property is not something we should be prioritizing over the well-being of the city, and so I'll be voting against the amendment too.
Thank you. Yes, Representative Ron.
I guess I like the amendment better than the bill. And I'm also, I guess it's up for interpretation, but I would consider getting very sick, possibly dying, to be a nuisance that would prohibit me from, or interfere with my use and enjoyment of property. So I'm going to support this, because getting sick is definitely a nuisance.
Thank you. Representative Gilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to follow along with Representative Klee's statement in that at the end of this, excuse me, line 19 and 20, any ordinance shall be in effect from the time therein limited without the sanction or confirmation of any other authority whatever. And any other authority is not defined. So, you know, if the select board makes a decision, someone doesn't like it, they can appeal to the House or the governor or somebody. It just doesn't give any meat to the substance of the phrase.
Thank you. Any further? Yes, Representative Lascelles?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to call the question.
Any further comments? Will we call the question? Okay, we're going to call the question to reconsider, to adopt the amendment of the bill that we're reconsidering, which is 1268. So we'll need a motion for a new amendment. Representative Lascelles? Oh, we already have the motion on the amendment. I'm sorry. Okay, so now we're going to vote whether we're going to adopt the amendment or not. The motion's been made and seconded. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Okay, adopt amendment 068 OH. Vice Chairman Piemonte.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Tripp.
I vote yes.
Representative Guthrie.
Yes.
Representative Lascelles.
Yes.
Representative McDonald.
Yes.
Representative Melvin.
Yes.
Representative Ayer.
Yes.
Representative Power.
Yes.
Representative Majori.
Yes.
Representative Trelevin.
No.
Representative Gilman.
No.
Representative Davis.
Yes.
Representative Newman.
Yes.
Representative Van.
No.
Representative Klee.
Yes.
Representative Gallagher.
No.
Representative Rung.
Yes.
Chairman Dolan.
Yes.
Motion passes 15-4.
Mr.
Okay,
Chairman,
so we have, yes, I'll be looking now for a motion to do an OTP-A with the amendment.
yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we OTP House Bill 1268 as amended.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion at this point? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call. Oh, I didn't see you. I'm
That's
sorry.
okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My friend, Representative Guthrie, says many times he sits on the select board. I'm saying the same thing, too. I sit on the select board. It's going to be a challenge for our council and costly for our council, or the city councils, excuse me, to figure out how to define what the enjoyment of the property is. I cannot imagine what your legal costs are going to be to defend that. I cannot imagine how many different applicants you're going to have. I don't think that's the right word. I wish you the best.
Thank you. Yes, Representative Klee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to Representative Majori. I have to echo his words. As a person who sits not on a select board but on an aldermanic board, I can tell you that many lawsuits are brought forward when citizens are not happy with something that we've done. And whether I think we would win or lose, I think this is just going to create more chaos in trying to do understanding. Representative Rung kind of made a comment about relative to illness being a nuisance. I think we're going to be having all kinds of legislative arguments as to what the definition of nuisance means. Is a nuisance that I have a loud neighbor, or a nuisance means that they have COVID and so on. And I'm concerned about where this is going, and for that reason, I will not support the OTPA. Thank you so much.
Any further questions? Representative Davis, you have your mic on. Is there any further comment? Representative Majora, you good? Okay, so at this point, we're going to be voting on the OTPA, whether we're going to apply this amendment to this bill. So I'll ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Vice Chairman Piemonte.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Tripp.
I vote yes.
Representative Guthrie.
Yes.
Representative LaSalle.
Yes.
Representative McDonald.
Yes.
Representative Melvin.
Yes.
Representative Vaya.
Yes.
Representative Power.
Yes.
Representative Majori.
No.
Representative Chair Levin.
No.
Representative Gilman.
No.
Representative Davis.
No.
Representative Newman.
No.
Representative Van.
No.
Representative Klee.
No.
Representative Gallagher.
No.
Representative Rung.
No.
Chairman Dolan.
Yes.
Motion passes 10 to 9.
Okay, I don't know about the rest of you. My head's kind of spinning right now, so I'm going to ask that we take a recess for 5 minutes. Let me clear my head, and you can use the restroom. Yeah. It was an OTPA. Yeah. So I'm going to talk to him. I'm sorry. I should have done that when we were.
Mr. Chairman, would there be any problem with us meeting just to continue our socialization? Yes, I'd like to move ITL on House Bill 1342.
I'd like to second that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the beginning of the meeting, I handed out a document, which is a Supreme Court ruling for a citizen of Nashua versus, versus the city of Nashua, as well as at that point, I believe he was an alderman at the time versus the city of Nashua, or specifically the mayor of Nashua. And I'd like to bring you to page 10 of that document. One of the conversations that we've had, and the reason for this bill to come forward, was that Nashua and Nashua alone does not have an override provision. So if you look down towards the bottom of that page, you will see item number 2, whether the city's spending cap contains an override provision. The court very clearly says, we agree with the trial, this is the Supreme Court, we agree with the trial court that the city's spending cap does not contain an override provision within the meaning RSA 49-C, :12, Roman numeral 3, and :33, Roman numeral 1D. RSA 49-C, :12, 3, Roman numeral 3, and semicolon 33I, Roman numeral 1D, requires city charter to contain a provision by which a supermajority of the pertinent body may exceed the spending cap. If you continue on, you'll say that the limit on the annual increase and so on. If you run down to, on page 11, halfway through the second full paragraph on there, when it says, in arguing for a contrary result, sure. I'm sorry, page 11, second paragraph, full paragraph down? Sure. Oh, I'm sorry, I do, I'm sorry. I forgot. Thank you so much. You're welcome. Yes. In arguing for a contrary result, T-Boom observes that at trial, the city's current mayor, who also was mayor in the 1980s, referred to the provision allowing the board to accept certain expenditures from the spending cap as an override provision. The mayor's subjective belief that the city's spending cap contains an override provision is irrelevant to our statutory interpretation. Nashua does not have a spending cap. And as such, it's been told over and over again, everyone has an override. Everyone does not have an override. Nashua does not have this override. This would mean that we would be limited and unable, even with the supermajority, to be able to do that. Because of this ruling, it is my belief that the original legislation that was brought through last year was brought through as such to override the judicial ruling on this particular thing. I'm not asking to overturn last year's ruling by the esteemed senator who brought it forward. I'm just asking that we consider providing in there that an override feature would be able to happen. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm still not sure, even with this, that it couldn't still be challenged in court. But I did ask, or I believe that the author of this did ask, that this feature be put in, and that very specifically state a 2/3 majority of the governing body would have to approve that. I think that is what the intent was with the original one. I'm not asking for an overturn of that spending cap. It's done. Truth be told, I lived in Nashua at the time that this went through. More than likely, I don't remember that many years ago. Sometimes I barely remember yesterday. But I do believe that I probably voted for it, because anybody who would come to me and say to me, by stopping spending, I can save you taxes, who in their right mind would not say yes? I don't want to think of myself as uneducated, but I think the truth is, I didn't look at what the possible issues could be. We often refer to them here as unintended consequences. And as such, because I did not consider those things, Nashua has had some unintended consequences. I do believe over the years, Nashua did violate the no override, and I think out of desperation, that they moved certain monies into certain areas and so on to try to override it in a different manner. I don't want to see this happen. I want to see full transparency, and that's why this bill was brought forward. I think at this point, if there are any real flaws in it, truth be told, I don't think it'll pass this committee, let alone the House, which truly saddens me, because I think the original bill was targeted at Nashua, and I think the unintended consequences is we're going to hurt my city, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative. Is there further discussion? Yes, Representative Majori.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question of the representative from Nashua?
Yes, if you're willing to take the question.
Yes, I am.
Representative Cleet, if you do not have the 2/3 supermajority to override, is it a simple majority now to override?
Technically speaking, we don't have it. In the past, what we have done when they have done this pseudo override, it's been always a 2/3 majority. They never once did a simple majority. And I don't think that allowing a simple majority in this case would be acceptable. So 2/3 is the only way to do it.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? May I ask, yes, Representative Power?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I find this bill very problematic, and I'm a little bit confused, because in my mind, this bill undoes SB 52, which was signed into law by the governor just last summer, and the ink wasn't even dry on that signature, and this bill was filed to essentially undo everything that's contained in SB 52, and that was signed into law. So I've heard in this committee comments from some of my colleagues that we should not be undoing bills. We need to let them play out, try them out, and I'm just very confused, because those were comments made just yesterday as well as last year in committee with regards to bills that have similar effects.
We're up against legal. Representative Khalid?
Thank you for allowing me a second chance at this. While I do respect my colleague, I don't believe it was the author's intention to undo SB 52. As I said, it was put through, for whatever the reasons are, I cannot judge a person, nor should I. And I apologize, because I think my comments prior did make a judgment call on it. But the main thing here is it would allow for the override function. I don't believe it gets rid of the spending cap. Again, I think maybe if this were put into court, it could be, even as it stands right now, we could be looking at another judicial exception. The original spending cap went to the lower court, went to a Supreme Court. The judge very specifically stated there was no override for Nashua. There was no override provision, no matter what basically the body did, nor what the mayor wanted to call it. Having that judgment at this point forward, there would be absolutely no way that Nashua could misinterpret and say, well, we're going to create an override. That's what this was supposed to do. I've spoken to the author of it. I've spoken to our legal individuals and so on. And it basically, the statement of any such tax cap or spending cap does not contain an override. I'm sorry, that's page 1, line 7. If any such cap or spending cap does not contain an override provision, it shall be interpreted to allow an override upon a 2/3 supermajority vote of the governing body. That was my main concern when this went through. You're right, the ink was not dry, but that was because, nor was the ink dried on this legislation from, this ruling from 2019 from the Supreme Court. So that legislation, again, I'm trying not to make a judgment, I believe was in reaction to that Supreme Court ruling. So again, no override exists in Nashua. I'm sorry, I'm talking about the, page 7. Line 7 through line 9, the highlighted area? No, in our bill, 1342, sir. I'm so sorry. I'm jumping around too much. I apologize for that. I have to admit, I am very passionate about this, and I'm having anxiety thinking I'm going to have to speak on the floor. After 6 years, I've never spoken on the floor, and I did not want to make this my first one. But so I'm already, so my hands are ice cold, and I'm already having an anxiety attack about it. But I am very passionate about it. I saw what not having an override did to the city. The streets were falling apart, infrastructure was dropping, and I think that's why, out of sheer frustration and so on, they created an override. I was not on the board at the time. This was basically overturned by the time soon after I got on the board. So thank you, and again, and I apologize if I'm appearing to be contradictory to anyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My understanding is that currently every existing tax and spending cap in New Hampshire, regardless of whether it was adopted before July 5th, 2011, it does have a supermajority override provision. And also, SB 52 did in fact, which was signed into law, did in fact require that any municipal action that redistributed excludable budget items from within the limit of the cap budget to outside of the budget cap shall require a supermajority vote. That was one of the, I guess, that was one of the things that was contained in SB 52. And so I continue to be a little bit confused by the House Bill 1342.
Yes, Representative Tripp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe that my understanding of this is that even though Nashua was very succinctly told that they need a spending cap exclusion or override, they since it requires a charter change, they haven't done it. So the action of this bill is to essentially negate that requirement that's found in RSA 49C12. You know, I don't understand why it is that Nashua should be given this exclusion that all the other cities and towns have to abide by.
Thank you. Representative Clea, is it any additional information from what you provided?
Yes, it is, but I see that Representative Gilman.
Go ahead, Representative Gilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to follow up on Representative Power's comments about the previous bill that was enacted. The lines that were struck include principal payments and interest on municipal bonded debt can't be included in the tax cap and counting towards the tax cap. And I have a problem with that because of the bond issue. The bond issue was agreed, but then you can't pay for it the next year for some budgetary reason, that the bonding rate of the municipality may go down.
Thank you. Representative Clea?
Yes, it's more of a clarifying to what Representative Tripp's comment about why should Nashua be any different. Actually, right now, Nashua is the only one that is different. All other municipalities within their tax or spending cap have the override feature. Nashua is the only one who does not have it. So Nashua is being singled out in the fact that they aren't like the rest, and we're trying to make us like the rest.
Thank you. Any further comment? Yes, Representative Tripp?
That was exactly my point. It seems like the easier thing, rather than changing state law, would be just for Nashua to put a tax cap or a spending cap override in their charter, rather than, us going through this.
Thank you. No, I'm not going to take any further discussion on this. I'm going to recess this bill and give myself an opportunity to get some advice, legal advice, before we go any further. So we're going to notify Representative Lascelles and Representative Power that made the motion and seconded that we're going to freeze that right now, and we'll recess the bill and come back to it shortly, but in the meantime, I'm going to get a little bit of additional legal advice as to how we should proceed on this bill. And we're going to move on to the next bill. Okay, the next bill is 1375, relative to the definition of a veteran. Representative Lascelles, do you have a motion to make?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move ought to pass on House Bill 1375.
Representative Ayer, do you have a second to that?
I second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on that bill? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll on House Bill 1375 for the motion to OTP.
Okay, OTP 1375. Vice Chairman Piemonte,
Yes.
clerk votes yes. Representative Tripp,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie,
Yes.
Representative Lascelles,
Yes.
Representative McDonald,
Yes.
Representative Melvin,
Yes.
Representative Ayer,
Yes.
Representative Power,
Yes.
Representative Majori,
Yes.
Representative Trelevin,
Yes.
Representative Gilman,
Yes.
Representative Stavis,
Yes.
Representative Newman,
Yes.
Representative Van,
Yes.
Representative Klee,
Yes.
Representative Gallagher,
Yes.
Representative Rung,
Yes.
and Chairman Dolan.
Yes.
Motion passes 19-0.
And without objection, I'll place this on the consent calendar. Next bill is 1393. And this is relative to the adoption of a school district budget cap. And I'll ask Representative Power if she has a motion she wants to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion on House Bill 1393 ought to pass.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there discussion on this bill? Representative Power, do you want to elaborate on your motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill is enabling legislation, and it provides the voters of a school district with the ability to enact a budget cap that adjusts annually the maximum budget that's based on the number of students, which is the average daily membership. And it can also have an annual inflation factor. The inflation factor can be a fixed percentage, or it can be based on an index from the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics. So the school board and the budget committee needs to manage their spending within the budget cap. And this bill also provides an override in situations in which the legislative body feels that the budget cap needs to be overridden. So in my mind, this bill provides tools for taxpayers to control what I see as unsustainable budgets that increase year after year despite the student enrollment going down. And the last comment that I'll make is we constantly and continually hear about the affordability of, to be able to live in New Hampshire. And I would submit to you that part of this has to do with our taxation and our spending. So I think that with, to that end, controlling our spending in turn controls the taxes, which in turn makes New Hampshire more affordable to live.
Okay. Representative Davis. I acknowledge Davis. Go ahead, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The statement has been made that spending. Is this better? Yeah. Statement has been made that about unsustainable spending and school districts and other bodies needing to be accountable for their budgets, which certainly is laudable. But what about education freedom accounts? The House just voted that they do not need to be accountable to any agency for their budget. What is the logic behind making school boards live within these constraints, but allowing education freedom accounts to wreak havoc with the state's funds?
Okay, Representative Gilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a couple of things to add to that, which is a very good point. There were, on the electronic submission, 108 opposed to this bill and only 44 in support. I'd also like to point out that the New Hampshire School Board Association opposed this because of the fixed cost question of how that was going to affect the cost per student and therefore the quality of the school and education. The other was that I questioned what was the source of the 15% drop in student enrollment, and was told to look at the Department of Education's website, which I did, and found in the past 10 years the decrease in enrollment was about 3%. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Majori?
I defer to Representative Trulevin, who might
Yes,
have a.
Representative Trulevin?
Don't say anything nice. It's okay. Representative Gilman, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the last part of what you said about percentages.
We were told at in the hearing that the decrease in student enrollment was 15%, and when I did my calculations from the Department of Education, is quite lower, 3% or 4%.
Thank you.
Representative Majori?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if I understand this bill correctly, if a district receives a special needs student who moves in, that would cost my community, we'd be looking at, we estimate about $300,000. And the board, there's no majority to override the tax cap, then we're on the hook for the full cost of that special needs student, which we have an obligation to. And in my community, $300,000 is 3 heads, 3 people. So we need to fire 3, because you can't find $300,000 in pencils and toilet paper. So $300,000 means we need to fire 3 teachers in order to be able to afford that special needs student, which we'd have an obligation to. I am opposed to this bill.
Thank you. Yes, Representative Power?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to respond to the representative's comments. I would say that within any budget, difficult decisions must be made, and it's not clear to me why the response is always to reduce teachers. There are other areas in any given budget which reductions can be made, so that would be a choice. And I would also like to add that with regard to special ed students, do we not have catastrophic aid for which we can apply to that would go to pay for the education of such a student?
Thank you. Further discussion? Yes, Representative Rung?
Yes, thank you. I'm opposed to this bill, and to address Representative Power's comment about catastrophic aid, that doesn't kick in until the following year. So the school district has to front that money, and if they don't have the ability to cover that cost, they will have to fire teachers. I know in Merrimack, about 75 at least of our budget is salary and benefits. So there's no way that you can absorb a cost of a special ed student without a reduction in staff. And to get to that point, when you reduce staff, you're increasing class sizes, you're reducing services, even to our typical students. So it has such a huge effect all over the district. And the fact that this override has to be done by the legislative body, sometimes districts within a school year have to make accommodations. And to call a special meeting, I think is very expensive. And also getting back to special ed, and I don't know about your districts, but many times when we fail to serve our special education students, we risk spending a lot of money on legal costs, because that's a federal requirement. We also risk accreditation. If a spending cap causes us to increase class sizes, reduce maintenance costs, there's so many parameters that go into accreditation. Many years ago, when I served on the Merrimack School Board, which I served for almost 9 years, our accreditation was at risk because of class sizes. So it's not an easy decision to let go of a teacher because you're putting much more risk to the school district and to the students. Thank you.
Representative Klee?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. I want to echo my colleagues' answers, and I want to say that I am grateful that this is enabling. That does make that pill a little easier to swallow. But the key here that I keep honing in on is that if 70 to 80% of the costs to any school budget is the variable cost of personnel, there's no doubt in my mind that in order to save a significant amount of money, we would have to reduce personnel. So where do you reduce it? And sadly, as was pointed out, teachers are probably one of the first to go, or paras, or something of that nature, which means we are affecting the class. I think it was pointed out then a $300,000 cut could mean, 3 or 4 teachers or a number of paras, which means we're going to increase the class size. We're going to be putting more students in. And the thing I keep hearing over and over again is that public schools don't work. The classes are too big. Private schools have much smaller classes, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we're setting ourselves up for failure. Yes, this is enabling, but if a district does put it through, the hoops that they're going to have to jump through, again, I always run back to the unintended consequences. I don't think anybody here in this room or on the floor will want to have larger classroom sizes, less teachers, less paras, less resources for our students in public schools. By law, we are required to have public schools and fund them appropriately. We have these freedom choice accounts, which may or may not be taking, I'm not going to debate that, away from the public schools. But the problem that we're having is we keep talking about reducing their budgets. We keep talking about bigger classroom sizes. That means less resources. I fear for our students of tomorrow in the public school systems if we keep doing this. So for this reason, I cannot vote or not to pass on this, even though it is enabling. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Powell, your additional comment? No? You're waving off. Any further comments from the committee? Seeing none, we have on House Bill 1393, we have a motion to OTP this bill and a second. Since there are no further comments, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Okay, OTP 1393. Vice Chairman Piemonte.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Tripp.
Yes.
Representative Guthrie.
Yes.
Representative LaSalle.
Yes.
Representative McDonald.
Yes.
Representative Melvin.
Yes.
Representative Ayer,
Yes.
Representative Power,
Yes.
Representative Majori,
No.
Representative Tree-Levin,
No.
Representative Gilman,
No.
Representative Stavis,
No.
Representative Newman,
No.
Representative Van,
No.
Representative Klee,
No.
Representative Gallagher,
No.
Representative Rung,
No.
Chairman Dolan.
Yes.
Motion passes 10-9.
Thank you. Moving on to House Bill 1406, which authorizes municipalities to collect compost. Representative Tripp, you have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion of OTP for House Bill 1406.
Representative Ayer, do you have a motion? Thank you. Is there any discussion on this? Yes, Representative Majori?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, just like with 1122, I'm going to have the unfortunate pleasure of notifying the sponsor that we passed his bill, because he was hoping that this one might go to interim study so that the DES regulations now that are updating rules for recycling and compost, while those are working through, he thought that they might improve this bill. So he actually thought, after conversations, that interim study would be a better idea. Ought to pass is fine because it gets us where we need, it gets improvement. It does get improvement, but it may require revisiting the bill. As long as we are clear with that, I'll let him know that next year we may have to tweak what, if we approve the bill. So either way you go on this, I think the sponsor is going to be okay.
Thank you. Further discussion? Yes, Representative Tripp?
I agree with my fellow representative. There's probably needs to be some more work done on this, but all this bill really allows towns to do is to collect compost or contract with another company to collect the combustible materials. So it's one of these things where this is just the first step in probably many steps in being able to provide a revenue source for towns by their being able to sell or whatever compost. So I support this bill.
Thank you. Representative Newman, could I get you to click off your mic, please? Is there any further discussion on composting? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll on OTP on 1406.
Vice Chairman Piamonti.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Tripp,
I vote yes.
Representative Guthrie,
Yes.
Representative Salas,
Yes.
Representative McDonald,
Yes.
Representative Melvin,
Yes.
Representative Ayer,
Yes.
Representative Power,
Yes.
Representative Majori,
Yes.
Representative Tree-Levin,
Yes.
Representative Gilman,
Yes.
Representative Stavis,
Yes.
Representative Newman,
Yes.
Representative Van,
Yes.
Representative Klee,
Yes.
Representative Gallagher,
Yes.
Representative Rung,
Yes.
and Chairman Dolan.
Yes.
OTP passes 19-0.
Without objection, I'll place that on the consent calendar. Yes.
So,
Representative Walker?
question, if it goes on the consent calendar, can floor amendments still be brought to it, or would it have to be pulled from the consent calendar for that to happen?
I believe you have to pull it from the consent.
Um,
And it only takes one member of the 400 to pull it from consent. So if you want to, if you don't want it on the consent, I won't.
No, you can put it on consent. I don't want to be the one to do that, but I was just wondering for reference, for like to familiarize myself with process here.
Yeah, it takes one representative to knock something off consent, and then it will go to the floor for a vote. So consider that as you look forward to the next session that we have. And you're going to want to alert the House clerk I imagine your leadership team would want to know this also. So you're going to want to alert Representative Majori, but process-wise, the clerk needs to know if you want to pull something off consent before the session starts. Any other comments on our process? Seeing none, we're going to take up now House Bill 1617, which is relative to housing projects in the Community Development Finance Authority and establishing a committee to prevent state subsidies for housing development that is not income sensitive. Representative Tripp, do you have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I do. I move ITL on House Bill 1617.
Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. Is there discussion on this?
May I speak to my motion?
Oh, yes, you can speak to your motion first.
In preparation for today's executive session, I looked around to see what other law exists in 162.
Meeting going?
And I found if you look a little higher in section L:12, it states that in allocating funds under the Community Development Block Grant Program, the authority shall give priority to activities, whereas this is directly contradictory to the bill. It says that funds shall be limited to housing for persons with lower middle income. If you look at L:13, it says these may include but are not limited to. And once again, if you go back to the bill, it says shall be limited to. You know, there seems to be some housekeeping that needs to be done in this bill to correct the opposition to the bill that's being proposed as to what law exists. Thank you.
Representative Gallagher.
So I seem to remember that this bill, hearing from the prime sponsor that he intended to withdraw this bill and asked us to vote ITL on it, and I remember knowing that at the time of the hearing, so I'm wondering if someone could help refresh my memory if we actually did that then, if we've already ITL'd this, or if we still need to vote on it now.
This is the first ITL of record that I'm aware of. If anyone else has a different memory on that, let me know. Yes, Representative Van, and then we'll go to Representative Powell.
Yes, I also remember that the prime sponsor asked us to ITL this bill. We heard it and we discussed that at the time we heard it, that the sponsor wished to have it disposed of because it actually doesn't work the way he thought it would. So we haven't yet voted on it, but it is the request of the sponsor that we ITL this bill.
Thank you. Representative Power?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My notes say exactly what the representative just commented.
Okay, great. Representative Majori, do you have any comments on?
Oh, I should have turned my mic off. I'm so sorry, Mr. Chair.
It's all right.
I was just double checking because I think I just heard all this. I thought we already execed it because the sponsor wanted to ITL it. So I just wanted to make sure that we weren't running afoul of an extra vote. But I think we'll get to the same place. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion before we take a vote? All right, we have a motion, and it's been seconded, to ITL House Bill 1617. I'll ask the clerk to take the roll, please.
Vice Chairman Piemonte.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Tripp.
I vote yes.
Guthrie.
Yes.
Representative Lascelles.
Yes.
Representative McDonald.
Yes.
Representative Melvin.
Yes.
Representative Villa.
Yes.
Representative Power.
Yes.
Representative Majori.
Yes.
Representative Chair-Levin,
Yes.
Representative Gilman,
Yes.
Representative Stavis,
Yes?
Representative Newman,
Yes.
Representative Van,
Yes.
Representative Klee,
Yes.
Representative Gallagher,
Yes.
Representative Ryan,
Yes.
and Chairman Dolan.
Yes.
19-0.
There'll be no ice cream during executive session. Okay, without objection, I'll put this on the consent calendar,
19-0.
19-0. Without further ado, let's move on to House Bill 1667, which is relative to the standard and optional veterans tax credits and the all veterans tax credit. Representative Power, did you want to make a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to make a motion ought to pass on House Bill 1667.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Representative Power, do you want to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill rectifies a number of discrepancies with the current veterans tax credits under RSA 72. First, RSA 2150 defines a veteran, and this definition does, under all the veterans tax credits, the definitions are not aligned. So what it does is it brings those in alignment. And also, under RSA 72, those veterans tax credit sections, it excludes currently serving veterans, which is not consistent with the definition of a veteran, and this legislation corrects that. And I guess notably that this bill includes active duty service people so that they can qualify towards that 90-day requirement in order to qualify for the veterans tax credits.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on House Bill 1667? Yes, Representative Klee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In doing some homework and so on, and looking at Title 38 U.S.C. 101 under definitions, and definition of veterans does in fact exclude any active duty. It refers to a veteran as they who have served within the military and so on. So my concern is that when we roll active duty into this, while I want to do as much as I possibly can to active duty, we could possibly be running afoul in that when a veteran qualifies for this, they have to be a resident of that community, et cetera. When someone is active duty and they are stationed overseas or in another state, they still reside, for all intent and purposes of voting, et cetera, within that community. So they might reside in Merrimack, thus being qualified for the veterans credit, but not physically being there. That is my concern about the active duty portion of it. So the DD 214 is basically discharge papers, and it is something that is often used in that particular thing. So again, I refer back to Title 38 U.S.C. 101 definitions, where it does talk about a veteran versus an active member of the service. So I'm just concerned that we are kind of mixing apples and oranges in here. So thank you.
Thank you. Just to add on Representative Klee's discussion, the veterans vote at their home of record. And we haven't defined that yet. Your home of record is where you lived before you went into the service. So if you lived in Nashville and you joined the Marines and you're now in South Carolina in boot camp and an election comes up, you have to obtain an absentee ballot from Nashville and you vote in your home of record there. You don't vote down in South Carolina. Yes, Representative Klee? That's
kind of what I was alluding to. I apologize if I misstated it. that was the point I was making. If you went into the service and you lived in Nashville, Merrimack, or whatever Nashville home, and you owned a home at that time when you went in, that in fact would be your place of residence, and therefore your voting from there. So I'm sorry if I do tend to stutter over my words, so
Okay.
thank you.
Representative Gallagher.
So, I was just reviewing my notes from the hearing on this, and one thing I had noted down was that there were concerns about possible overlap with House Bill 1375, which we already voted to pass today. So I didn't quite catch whether those concerns were addressed or not, so I was wondering if someone could just remind me about how the interactions between this bill and House Bill 1375 work.
Okay, I'll ask any volunteers that want to speak to that. Yes, Representative Majori.
Unless someone else would like to, I think I was the one who muddied the waters on that one, and I apologize. My concern was that if 1375 didn't pass and we didn't change what the definition of honorably discharged, or clear that language up about honorably discharged and discharged with honor, if that didn't pass, then we'd have to it would make sense to try to clarify it here. But since 1375 went through, what'll happen is this bill notes that statute that was being amended, so everything should be fine. And I apologize for that. I just wanted to make sure it was a dotting of the i's and crossing of the t's, and it seems to have done that. So
Thank you for that clarification. Any further discussion? Yes, Representative Rung.
Yeah, my concern is by including active duty service people, shouldn't this require a fiscal note? Because I'm just thinking of Merrimack, and anecdotally, we have a lot of, I can probably think of 6 to 8 people just that I personally know whose child's home of record is in Merrimack, but they're serving overseas or in, away from home in a military base. So there would be this, it would have a fiscal note on it. It should have a fiscal note on it so that communities can be prepared for any tax impact. I notice it also takes effect 60 days after passage, so it would take into effect likely before or during a budgetary year rather than being effective at the start of a new budgetary year.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, somebody's going to have to remind me, but I think we had a very long and substantive conversation about several previous tax credit, tax exemption bills for certain classes of people, and how that would have something to the tune of $55 million impact in downshifting property taxes to, excuse me, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
To other New Hampshire residents. Should we not be having the same conversation about this bill as all the others? And if not, why not?
Thank you for that input. Is there any further discussion on the bill before we vote on it? Oh, yes. Representative Gilman?
Thank you. I would just like to either point out or ask for agreement that towns that have adopted the veterans tax credit would need to readopt this if the legislation passes. That was my understanding in the notes, that it would have to be readopted.
Thank you. Representative Trelevan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was thinking the same thing that my colleague from Lebanon had brought up. We did have a very substantive discussion in regards to one class of people's, putting the burden of one class of people's on another class of people's. I don't think I'm saying that correctly. I hope you know what I mean. And I'm very, very wary of doing that. I wholeheartedly support our United States military and all their veterans, of course, and want to give them as much support and help and
Well, thank you. I think
It's
the
possible.
words you were reaching for was a tax shift from one set of voters to
That's
another.
exactly correct. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I was looking for that word. So I'm not in favor of this. Thank you.
Representative Khalid?
Again, thank you for allowing me a second chance to speak. I do want to reiterate the tax shift and so on, and the previous ones that we basically passed on, so to speak, was because it was exactly doing that. I know that some people say that it's only about 1% of the current that are currently serving are going to be homeowners and so on. I think that we're going to see that number significant. I think when active duty decide that they're going to be retiring, they oftentimes try to get an assignment to an area so that they can retire in that area. They put down roots, they buy homes. I think New Hampshire, we attract a lot of veterans because we are so veteran friendly. So I think that these veterans that are going to be retiring will be coming in. I'm not saying they're going to come in droves and we're going to have a massive amount of people coming in at once. But when I look at the current statewide tax loss, meaning tax shift, tax burden of almost $32 million, and we're going to add to that. Even if we only added 1% to that, we're still adding to it. And that means young families are going to be picking this up. And I'm very worried and very concerned about it. So I want to do everything I can for our veteran, for our active duty. But there comes a point when we have to kind of slow the roll. We've done it in the last few bills. I think we need to take a breather, see how everything is happening. It seems like every year we just have one more after another of a different group of people. So thank you.
Thank you for that input. Yes, Representative Power?
If I understand the comments correctly, there's a concern of an influx of active duty service members coming to New Hampshire to reside. I'm not aware of any military bases in New Hampshire that house active duty troops.
There are a
I-
few. The Pease area, the area outside of the Manchester Mall, the,
I'm talking bases.
well, let's make sure Representative Power is finished first.
I know that there's Hanscom Air Force Base, but my understanding is that Pease is no longer an active Air Force base. It's been downgraded. So I'm not sure what the reference is at this point.
Thank you. Representative Treleaven?
Thank you, Representative Power, for the question. You're correct. Pease is no longer an active Air Force base. Yes, it does, yet it does house the Air National Guard. That's, their headquarters are there. And I don't know the numbers of how many people are there, but they are consistently coming and going and working in that space.
Yes, Representative Power?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The mission of any National Guard within a state is to serve the state. So it makes sense that those service members would reside in the state.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes, Representative Klee?
Thank you again. I started my illustrious career with the federal government in DOD. I went from there to the Veterans Affairs area of the federal government. And I can tell you that when someone does retire, they will ask for an assignment. Sometimes the assignment is a base. Sometimes the assignment can be with a business. So for instance, I had a lot of military that worked with me when I worked with the AVCO. It was called the Air Force Plant Representative Office. That was out of Massachusetts, yes. But a lot of those people still lived and bought homes in New Hampshire. I worked at a variety of different areas. I have friends who work in Hanscom, and that is where they're assigned. They have homes in Nashua. One of my constituents that I just spoke to yesterday moved this way and was assigned to Pease. I've talked to those that have been assigned to Otis. Granted, that's the Cape, nice place to live and so on. They don't always live next to where they're assigned to. They're going to buy a home where they feel that they want to retire. And part of that reason is when they move, the federal government helps them move. So they're going to try to move. Sometimes they move and get an apartment, and then sometimes they buy a home. So just because we don't have a large active base doesn't mean that the people aren't going to be coming to New Hampshire. So thank you.
Thank you. Representative Treleaven?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for clarification, in appreciation of my colleague's comment about the National Guard, I looked it up real quick, and the Pease Air National Guard Base is the 157th Air Refueling Wing, which is, its primary mission is refueling to all U.S. Armed Forces and allied nations' aircraft extending their flying range with the capacity of transporting cargo, personnel, and medevac operations. Additional missions include homeland defense and air traffic control, and they are the future home of the KC-46A Pegasus air refueling tanker. They may or may not live in New Hampshire, but it's definitely a national mission that they're providing. Only comment I wanted to make for clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Tripp.
Well, I'm sure we could probably solve this problem of active duty members moving to New Hampshire by simply getting rid of all the bases, because I believe that the amount of money that the bases bring to the local economy far outweighs any money that the veterans are going to get from their veterans tax credits. So possibly we should look into that. Thank you.
Let me give you a real-life example, meaning me. When I left the military, they said, "Where do you want to go now?" And I said, "I want to go home." So they said, "Well, your home of record is Nashville, New Hampshire, and it's about 1,400 miles from where you are right now. So we will rent you a moving van and put all your stuff in it, and we will move you up to 1,400 miles in any direction you want to go, but no more than that." So I took the 1,400 miles and I came home. I didn't go to a military base, or I didn't go to a guard unit. I just went home. So that's my personal experience, if that adds anything to the discussion. Yes, Representative Power.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, I missed the description that my esteemed colleague gave with regard to what's going on at Pease. And I will look it up when I get home, and my comment would be, I'm not sure if that would have been a reserve component at Pease. So, and the last thing that I'll say is that this is enabling legislation. If a community and the majority of the people in the community do not want to provide these types of tax credits, then they do not need to vote it in.
New information, or I don't want to start an argument here.
I apologize if I appear to be that way. No, my question is going to be that it is enabling, but if we pass this and a community doesn't want to do it, they would have to roll back their current credit? I just want to make sure that I understand that. That's all I'm asking. So in other words, if a community already has this, the standard optional veterans tax credits, but they did not want to have to add these additional people to it, there's no way that they can say, I'm just not going to add these additional. They would have to roll back their current veterans credit for all credit. Is that correct?
I can't confirm that.
Okay.
Anybody have a stronger knowledge of that, of how the veterans tax credit would play out? Okay, I think I'm gonna move the question. Oh, I'm sorry, Representative Rom.
No, Merrimack has a veterans tax credit already. So if this bill were to pass, we would have no choice but to extend it to those that continue to serve, which it's kind of strange because, you know, in line 4, it says is a veteran. In line 6, it says continues to serve. So that's definitely a conflict with Title 38. Doesn't seem to make much sense. But Merrimack will have their taxes increase because of this, if this passes. And I want to just reiterate my concern that this does not have a fiscal note. So I won't be voting for it.
Thank you. Representative Power, you have new information?
Well, I would just like to say the reason why continues to serve is to make it abundantly clear what the purpose was, so that,
Okay, thank you. As a sponsor of this bill, you would have the most knowledge. Any other comments before we take a vote? All right, we're voting on 1667, and we have a motion to OTP and a second. Ask the clerk to take the roll.
Representative Piemonte.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Tripp.
Yes. Yes.
Representative Guthrie.
Yes.
Representative Lascelles.
Yes.
Representative McDonald.
Yes.
Representative Melvin.
Yes.
Representative Ayer.
Yes.
Representative Power.
yes.
Representative Majori.
No.
Representative Chair Levin.
No.
Representative Gilman.
No.
Representative Davis. Okay. Representative Newman.
No.
Representative Van.
No.
Representative Klee.
No.
Representative Gallagher.
No.
Representative Rung.
No.
Chairman Dolan.
Yes.
Motion passes 10-8.
Okay, before you start packing your things up, we're going to go back and tackle House Bill 1342, which we took a recess on. Our legislative assistant did some research during our process today. During that recess, he went and spoke with legislative legal, and the feedback he got was that the bill that we're considering, 1342, does not contradict the Supreme Court ruling that was brought to our attention by Representative Klee. So, we have a motion and a second for an ITL on 1342. So, Representative Klee.
Thank you, and thank you for getting that information. I don't think there was ever a question that this bill contradicted the Supreme Court decision. I think what the Supreme Court decision proved was that Nashua does not have the override ability, and hence the reason for this particular thing was to put in an override provision for Nashua. So I never felt that this bill contradicted the Supreme Court. The comment was that because of the Supreme Court decision, it proved that the necessity to have this particular comment, not that there was contradiction between the Supreme Court and this one. So that was the reason for my bringing the Supreme Court decision to all of you, to show you what the decision was and what the statements were made and so on. I never felt there was a contradiction to it. I just felt that without this bill, Nashua has no override provision. Even though in the past, they may have done it, what I'm saying is now, we know for a fact that the Supreme Court has ruled we do not have it, so to do it would be illegal. And I personally, as a board member, don't want to do anything illegal, yet my hands will be tied. As for being able to put a charter change, that takes time. You need to get signatures, and that just has not happened.
The motion is to ITL.
Yes, I understand the motion. I want this to pass.
Oh, you want it to pass?
I want this to pass, because we need it, we need the override. We need those lines that are on 7 through 9. We need this to pass. I'm not concerned that there anything that this, I'm just concerned that right now, Nashua is the only municipality with a cap that has no override ability. And the Supreme Court decision proved that and showed that we have no override ability. And SB 52 did not allow Nashua to have an override ability. It overrode the Supreme Court decision that said it was unenforceable, is the way I think the decision came down from the Supreme Court, but it did not give us an override provision.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Representative Ayer.
Microphone?
Put your microphone on, Paul. Thank you.
Is Nashua the only one that can't do this in the state?
Yes, we are.
Well, that doesn't seem too fair to me.
Any addition? Yes, Representative Majori.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the effort to treat like things alike, we've spent quite a bit of time on other bills trying to make sure that language comports, and we're trying to make Nashua have a 2/3 majority to override something, which is kind of restrictive, and they want that, just so that we have clarity. I'm all in favor of that.
Thank you. Representative Tripp.
I guess I have a question. Why is it that every other town has an override capability except Nashua?
Representative Klee, can you tackle that?
Oh, absolutely. And I'd love to tackle it. This was one of those, I don't want to call it community, I'll call it a citizen charter. This was one of the citizens groups that got together and got all the signatures that needed to get a ballot question. And when you do that, and they write the question, and they were very specific about how they wrote it and so on, and it passes, you must put it in the charter as written. So in order to make any changes to it, you have to do another charter change, et cetera. So it was not written by the city of Nashua. It was written by the citizens group, and an override provision was not put into it. So I hope that answers your question.
Representative Lascelles.
Yes, it seems that this cap was instituted based upon a referendum of all the citizens. Then I feel that to make changes to that, to override this cap, should also require a referendum. To change the tax cap, to implement, even though it's a supermajority, and I understand my colleague Majority was talking about a 2/3 vote, but it's a 2/3 vote of the aldermen. It's not a 2/3 vote of all the citizens. So if we're going to institute a major change, and having an override to this is a major change, then I think it needs to go back to a referendum. That's just my personal feeling.
Thank you. I see. Yes, Representative.
Another question.
Oh, wait a minute. Representative Tripp.
Oh.
One up front of you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'm not trying to muddy any waters, and certainly anybody who's also from Nashua can clarify this. I was on the school board in Nashua when this went in. It's a spending cap, not a tax cap. And one of the illustrations that one of our aldermen made at the time, and I respect the fact, yep, it was voted on and whatever. There was an illustration that with a spending cap, you could literally bond and get a school built, but you could not afford, because of spending cap restrictions, you might not be able to outfit the school with desks, chairs, whatever. So there was some awareness that it was problematic. It got to be, as Representative Klee earlier said, though, people responded to understanding that their taxes would be limited, and that's what they responded to. And the override provision that, frankly, when I was on the school board way back then, I thought we had one, and there were instances when 10 aldermen would, quote, override. But I would really, I think we need this to clear things up in Nashua. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Newman. Yes, Representative Gilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank the representative for bringing up the difference between the spending cap and the tax cap. I believe in this legislation, the only time a spending cap is referred to is on line 4, and the rest of it all has to do with tax caps. So I would argue that this legislation would be ineffective because it doesn't, all the details of what you can do with a tax cap are not included with what you can do with a spending cap.
Representative Klee?
Thank you. I'd like to address Representative LaSalle. I don't disagree with you that this should possibly at one point go back to the people. The problem is we're here and we're now in SB 52 passed last year. We don't have time to get a ballot question out. We're looking at 2 years. We didn't have time once SB 52 passed to get it on that particular election. The next election coming through, it will be a federal election and not a municipal election, so we can't get it there. We're looking at 2 more years of having to deal with this. And I have anxiety as to what those 2 years should do. I have brought up the fact that we probably do need to implement a charter change and that we do need to put a referendum on the ballot. So I don't disagree with you, but we're here, we're now, and we've got 2 more years plus of what this possibly could do to the city of Nashua. And I saw what it did in the past, and now that we really do not have override, even though we may have done it in the past, we would be remiss if we openly did it now, knowing what the Supreme Court has said that we do not have this. So again, I appreciate your time, and thank you so much for indulging me.
I know there's some urgency to call the question, but I'm going to allow 2 more speakers, and then we're going to be done. Representative Tripp?
I withdraw.
Yes. Representative Davis?
So, with gratitude to my colleague, Representative Majori refreshed my memory on how we voted on HB 1081, which was to not require a 2/3 majority to dissolve a village district, but let it go at a simple majority. So in that case, we were comfortable with a simple majority. In this case, we're insisting on a supermajority. Can somebody point out to me the logic in that?
They want to tackle that question?
I'll tackle that. With the village district issue, it's a simple majority to form a village district. And I don't see why you would require a supermajority to dissolve it. And since I spoke to that previously, if you give me some time, I can find where that resides in law. If you
You only have about 60 seconds.
are people interested in why it's only a simple majority to form a village district?
I think we're getting close to being non-germane.
Well, I didn't start this.
I appreciate that. Okay, the question's been called. We're looking at our final bill, which is House Bill 1342, and I appreciate your indulgence as we went to research and went to an attorney, and I think we've got this thoroughly covered and spoken to. So I'm going to ask the clerk to call the question. I'm going to remind all of us that this is an ITL. Motion's been made by Representative LaSalle and has been seconded by Representative Power. And so now we're at a point where we're going to ask the clerk to call the question on an ITL.
Vice Chairman Piemonte.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Tripp.
Yes.
Representative Guthrie.
No.
Representative LaSalle.
Yes.
Representative McDonald.
Yes.
Representative Melvin.
No.
Representative Ayer.
No.
Representative Power.
Yes.
Representative Majori.
No.
Representative Trelevin.
No.
Representative Gilman.
No.
Representative Stavis.
No.
Representative Newman.
No.
Representative Van.
No.
Representative Gallagher.
No.
Representative Rung.
No. Excuse me?
Chair-
You have
I
Chair.
didn't get a chance to vote.
What's that?
Representative Clee didn't get called to vote.
Representative Cleve.
I
Thank
think
you.
I talked too much, so no.
And Chairman Dolan.
Yes. Okay, I believe the motion's
Motion
defeated.
failed.
Representative Piemonte, do you have a new motion to make?
What was the vote, Mr. Clerk?
Could you
12 to
put your
7.
microphone on, please?
I know. 7 to 12. 7 to 12.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion interim study,
For Bill 1342?
1342.
Is there a second for that? Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion at this point? Yes, Representative Clee.
Thank you, and I hope this doesn't mean that I don't get to vote. My firm belief, and I think it was even mentioned here by a representative who filled in the past, that an interim study is equivalent to an ITL, that it will go nowhere and that it would possibly die. And I don't mean to be critical. It's just a concern that I have. I think this is something that needs to be addressed and it needs to be fixed. So I would hope that we will vote against an interim study. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Yes, Representative Power?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My comments would be, this is, in fact, it's a complicated issue. This bill is curious. We had SB 52 that came through this committee last year. It was signed into law. So all totaled, this is a complex issue. And my concerns are that there have been comments which, in my understanding, are just not accurate. So for those reasons, I'm uncomfortable passing something that's problematic in my estimation. So I would support an interim study.
Further discussion? Representative Rung?
Yeah, I mean, we've voted on ought to pass on many bills that were a lot more vague and
Excuse me,
nondescript.
Representative Rung, if I could ask you to hold on a minute. Representative Guthrie, could I get you to click off your microphone?
Okay.
Go ahead.
I just think this is pretty straightforward. I think Nashua and any community that has a cap needs to have an override provision. The last thing we want to do is delay this. I think we should just vote no on the interim study so that another motion can be made and we can get this into statute. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll ask, oh, yes, Representative Guthrie.
I just like to explain somewhat why I voted no, and that I don't think it should go into an interim study. We have a member of our committee from the town that has a problem, or city that has a problem. I think we ought to have the bill go forward, let the Senate take a look at it, and I just think they ought to have an opportunity to move this bill along. I don't know enough about it. I am voting in the dark, but it wouldn't be the first time. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Power?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If a particular town has an issue, I'm not sure why they can't fix that in their charter if that is in fact an issue.
Thank you. Seeing no further comment, I'm going to ask the clerk to call the question. This is a motion to interim study House Bill 1342.
Vice Chairman Piemonte?
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Tripp?
Yes.
Representative Guthrie?
No.
Representative LaSalle's?
Yes.
Representative McDonald?
Yes.
Representative Melvin?
No.
Representative Ayer?
No.
Representative Power?
Yes.
Representative Majori?
No.
Representative Tree-Levin?
No.
Representative Gilman?
No.
Representative Stavis?
No.
Representative Newman?
No.
Representative Van?
No.
Representative Klee?
No.
Representative Gallagher?
No.
And Representative Rung?
No.
And?
Chairman Dolan?
Yes.
I can't move fast enough today. Motion fails 7 to 12.
Okay, the motion for interim study has failed, so we're available to make a new motion. Yes, Representative Klee?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. A motion to, ought to pass, please. And I encourage everybody to say yes. Thank you so much.
I second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion to OTP? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the question.
Okay, OTP, Vice Chairman Piemonte.
No.
Clerk votes yes. Representative Tripp?
No.
Representative Guthrie?
Yes.
Representative LaSalle's?
No.
Representative McBride? Sorry, McDonald?
No.
Representative Melvin?
Yes.
Representative Ayer?
Yes.
Representative Power?
No.
Representative Majori?
Yes.
Representative Tree-Levin?
Yes.
Representative Gilman?
No.
She said it pretty forcefully, too.
Yeah. Boy. Representative Stavis? Representative Newman?
Yes.
Representative Van?
Yes.
Representative Klee?
Yes.
Representative Gallagher?
Yes.
No, I've still got Representative Rung to do also.
Yes.
Chairman Dolan? believe it's 13 to 6.
What you got?
13 to 6 in the affirmative. 12 to 6? 12 to 7, what do you got, Jim? 12 to 7, okay. Yeah.
Close enough. Given the passion displayed, I'd offer if Representative Clee wanted to write the committee report.
I will do that, sir. Thank you.
You need a volunteer to write the minority report. Well, again, thank you all very much. We're concluding our session today with no bills in the backlog.
Don't we have like 3 bills that, that deal with veterans tax credit, that we're talking about financial notes? Oh, those are? Oh, okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman? If I could, one of our colleagues expressed a great deal of anxiety with respect to a bill that she was very passionate about. And she also expressed that she was not looking forward to talking on the House floor because she hadn't talked on the House floor before. And might I just say that she displayed no anxiety today, and as long as she wears that beautiful flower in her hair, I'm sure she'll do fine on the House floor.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would echo Representative LaSalle's observations of Representative Klee. She's quite capable, measured, smart, and passionate. I can go either way on the flower.